Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel where we have our second Ford that we've had on the channel. I have always sort of played the idea in my mind of a Mark III Focus RS, but these ones though, the Mark II, seem to be worth more than the newer Mark III, and I'm curious as to why, but now that I get the chance to drive one, I might be able to find out. Back in the late 2000s, there wasn't really anything quite like the Mark II Focus RS. The only other 5-cylinder hot hatch, the Audi RS3, didn't come out until 2013. There were other worthy competitors like the MK2 RS R26R with 230 horsepower and the Mazda 3 MPS with 260 horsepower, as well as the 250 horsepower all-wheel drive Golf R32, but none had quite this amount of power, 305 horsepower, combined with this excellent 5-cylinder soundtrack. There were only 315 sold in Australia, this one being the second last one, number 314. And it was pretty expensive at $59,000, pretty much 60 grand brand new. It was related to the Mark II Focus ST or the XR5 if you're an Aussie. Upon having rear-road suspension, it also had upgraded con rods, pistons, camshafts and cylinder heads, as well as a much bigger turbo which doubled boost pressure to about 20 pound. The one that I'm driving today has been tuned. It's got a Miltec exhaust, intake, intercooler and an ECU tune, and it's making about 350 horsepower. Everything else is completely standard though. Seats are excellent, has Recaros from factory. A little bit difficult to get in and out of. I'm finding I'm clashing with the bolstering on the right hand side, but other than that, once you're in them, a little bit firm, but really supportive seats for this kind of driving at least. Interior room, really good. I'm 6'3" and I wasn't expecting there to be so much room, especially like in the legroom sense. A lot of headroom, but a lot of legroom as well. So it's a car you could tour quite comfortably in. And even though it's a European Ford and not a BMW or a Merc or even a Volkswagen or something like that, the interior feels actually pretty premium. As you'd expect, I suppose, for the price tag being a $60,000 car brand new. But I've been really impressed with how good everything feels here. Now it is firm, no getting around that. The suspension is definitely unforgiving in normal driving, and there was a little bit of interior rattle. Doesn't feel crashy, but I wouldn't want it any firmer at all. But when you start to come up to speed a bit, then obviously it does change and the car starts to settle, and then it starts to work with the road. The engine is a Volvo-derived 2.5 litre 5-cylinder. It's the B52. All the internals are different, but the block's the same. And it's in the S60R as well, one of my favourite Volvos. Same as the gearbox, it's a get-rag unit with a Quaife mechanical limited slip diff to try to get the power to the road. Because these weren't known for being torque steery, but at the same time, Ford spent a fair bit of money on the Revo knuckle front suspension. So this is supposed to mitigate torque steer. Renault have done the same thing with their Megane RS. The Honda Civic Type R is similar. So I think it would be a hell of a lot worse though without it. But normal driving at least feels like a Focus. So clutch biting point is really low, so it takes a bit of getting used to, but it's super light, like really light clutch. Steering's light, but very direct, very like off center response is awesome. Easy to see out of. This pillar does get in the way a bit, the A-pillars, so that's something that you kind of find yourself looking around them a bit more, but visibility's good, room's good. Other than the suspension being firm, it's very approachable for normal driving. Nice gear change too. So let's do a little second gear pull. Despite the Revo knuckle suspension being very well engineered and all that, it still torque steers. So it is difficult to get the power down. Obviously, this one making about 350 horsepower, it's gonna be exacerbated a bit compared to a stock one. But yeah, you wanna hold on to it because it does wanna sort of tramline around the road a little bit. But it kind of I guess it's a nice balance between, it doesn't make it undrivable, but it adds to the character of the car a little bit. You've got to focus a little bit more on what you're doing. But power delivery though, like I wish more hot hatches were 5 cylinders. It sounds beautiful, a lot more characterful than a Golf R or an A45 or anything like that, or even the new Mark III for that matter. And really linear, peak power is about 6,500 RPM. Obviously I'm not quite sure how this tune would alter that. And you got a lot of torque. Yeah, super assertive steering, really good front end grip. The steering is electric. Yeah, not a lot of steering feel, but so much response, and it's weighted so beautifully that you can be really precise. It's not too like darty or too nervous. It's that perfect in between of being really responsive but still so adjustable. And it's of course not a really big car, so that helps as well. Oh, look at that. Oh, of course it's a Falcon. But you don't get bored of a 5-cylinder noise though, that's for sure. Also, fun fact, Europe did get the RS 500, which had 350 horsepower, same as this particular example, had a bigger fuel pump, intercooler and an ECU remap, and it's a nod to the Sierra Cosworth RS 500. It's one of the coolest Fords ever made in my opinion. I know someone who owned an RS 500 actually. He lives in Australia now, he lived at the UK at the time, and he went on a 2-week trip to the Navy and he came back and it wasn't in his garage anymore, it had been stolen. But anyway, I digress. I do quite like that badge though. But yeah, not like you need much more than the stock 305. But yes, this one in its current state of tune is still really good. Very healthy power figure for a car that only weighs 1.4 tonne. Back to cornering. We're on 235 section tyres, so should be enough grip. Love that sound. Fords have always been renowned for having really well set up chassis. And yeah, the balance is excellent. Not really driving fast enough, obviously, on a public road to sort of assess how lift-off oversteer feels. But it does feel really neutral and user-friendly. You do just have to be conscious with how you power out of corners with the torque steer. And this raises quite an interesting point really, because a few months ago I did drive a Hyundai i20N on the channel, which up until this point is still probably one of the most fun cars I've driven, and it had a little bit more feel and chassis feedback. So on the public road it felt a little bit more accessible and it had an additional layer of involvement. Am I saying that it's a better handling car than the Focus? No, I'm not. But the Focus RS is so capable that unless you're either seriously breaking the law or on a racetrack where corner speeds are a lot higher, it does feel a little bit more inaccessible on the public road. Could I see myself owning one of these? Yeah, I think so. Just because of what they represented, they were such a standout car. And obviously, you know, we have cars now like the A45 AMG and the RS3. It kind of dilutes hot hatches of before, because everyone, you know, thinks about the latest and greatest, but at the time this was just that. It was in a class of its own, and I think it's still a very relevant car because the Mark III that replaced it was all-wheel drive and obviously had the 2.3 4-cylinder, so a great platform, but obviously not a 5-cylinder 1.4 tonne car the way this is. And everything's gotten heavier, and it's an era of Ford that is, well, gone. I mean, the Focus ST's gone now, the Fiesta ST's gone. Ford don't build anything cool anymore. I know the American Fords, obviously, you know, still got the Mustang. You look back on cars like the Escort Cosworth and, you know, the Mark I RS, and then this, like, it does absolutely fit in with their habits of making very exciting drivers' cars based on platforms that are very usable. It's a car that, well, you can't really replace it with anything directly. And I think that makes this car very appealing. Before the end of the video, we'll do one more pull. you don't get bored of that. These ones are worth, on the market condition and mileage dependent, obviously, between 50 to 70 grand, which is a lot of money. They simply just haven't really gone down in value at all. Mark 3 RSs are worth 35 to 45. So better value for money maybe, but if you want something rare and different, like, you know, only 315 of these brought to the country, then you can feel good about owning something quite rare and stand out. And I know we got the Audi RS3, but more 5 cylinders in hot hatches would just, because it's like perfect. It's the perfect size of not being too wide that you can't fit. Obviously, it has to be transverse, being a front wheel drive. 6 cylinders are a little bit hard to fit in, but a 5 cylinder, there's enough room, and it adds so much more to the driving experience. But compared to cars like the i20N, for example, the Focus RS's engine note, the torque steer, the keenness to attack corners really does give it a sense of drama that other hatches certainly don't have. In a way, it drives just as angry as it looks, and that does make every drive in it pretty exciting. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you for the next one.